So you see what we are supposed to do next is we are supposed to create a project, a module rather, but that module will be a service builder kind of a module and not a portlet module. From the portlet module, in fact, we are going to use it. So I go back to my IntelliJ IDEA, and here I click right mouse button on modules. I say new, I'll say module. When I do that, you see I have my Liferay as the plugin here, which helps me to create modules. I say Liferay modules next. And then here I will do what? What will I do over here? I will create a module with a name that matches my business service concept, right? The business service concept. So the concept that I'm building here is of employee management. So I'll say employee hyphen service. That's the name of my module. And what is the type? Am I going to select MVC portlet? No, I'm going to select service builder. Will this be a widget in my Liferay portal? No, this will not be a widget. I repeat, this will not be a widget. This will be a non-visual module, a module that does not relate to any visual aspect of it, right? I will not get a widget which I can drag and drop. Does it make sense? We are building business logic. So I'll say service builder and I say next. Here I will give the name of the package com.mslc.trainings, training rather, dot liferay dot, I'll say service. Okay, dot custom, sorry, employee. This is the service we are building. And the name of the class here would be, okay, I don't have to give the name of the class, and this is a very common user interface that the plugin provides. So hence, but then if it is not meaningful, it will not allow you to do anything. So that's fine. Just the package name needs to be given here. I say finish. And when I do finish here, it creates a new project for me. Can you please see this? Okay, make a note of this. I've got employee service, right? And maybe on your machine, it takes a bit of a time in order to get the dependency. So that's okay. You just have to wait till the time you see that there are no messages here. And then we are good with this employee service. I've got employee service API and I've got the employee service. Okay, that's what I have. Very importantly, what does so I have a module which has got two more modules within it. I repeat, two more modules within it. As you can see, for this I have a build.gradle, and for this module also I've got its own build.gradle. Can you see this? Right? This build.gradle is like your pom.xml file in case of Maven projects. And for the entire module also, I have got build.gradle here. Got this? Pretty simple stuff and very easy to understand. So you've got employee service here, right? Within that, as I said, two modules. What is this API? This will contain, when I build the service, I have not yet built the service. When I build the service, this will contain all interfaces. I repeat, this will contain all interfaces, whereas this will contain the implementation of those interfaces. And from some other project, like for example, employee portlet, which is a different module altogether. From that module, if I want to access the services, my dependency will be on only and only abstraction, that is interfaces. It will not be on implementation. So this is the service that I will use as dependency. This module will be added as a dependency in my employee portlet so that I can use the services. But we will do that later. Now, what is important for us is to first and foremost understand this file here, service.xml. This is what I was talking about before the tea break. I said that Service Builder is the framework in Liferay using which you just need to configure the entities. It will automatically generate the required classes. And not just that, it will generate those classes will be based on design patterns, and not only that, it will also generate CRUD, create, read, update, delete methods for you. Those services will be automatically created. Create service, update service, delete service, read service will be automatically created for you. Again, read by ID and read all will also be, so the name of the function is not read all, but then it's a different function. I'll come to it, right? So what we are going to do is that first and foremost over here, please see this. I have got, so let me talk about those things which are really very critical and important for us to discuss. There are many things out here. We will just focus on the ones that are very critical for us, with respect to the topic that we are discussing. So the very first thing is this package path. This is important. This package path is important. So this is the package in which all the classes will be generated. Of course, within this, again, there will be sub packages as well. I repeat, there will be sub packages in which the classes will be generated. This is the namespace here. And whenever it creates a table, it will create a table with whatever the namespace is underscore in the name of the table. Why? Because it will automatically create a table for me in the database. I don't need to worry about creating the table as well. I repeat, in fact, I don't need to worry about creating the table in the database. It will automatically do the needful. So I'll give the namespace as learning. Okay, I'll just give the namespace as learning. Correct. In your real life, the namespace must match to the must map or match to the service that you're building. So for example, okay, so why not do that? I'll say employee is the namespace. Employee exactly is the namespace. Employee service is the namespace, or I'll just employee. Okay, now this is something which you need to uncomment and configure if at all you want to use a different database as compared to the one that is by default used for your Liferay portal instance. We will come to that later. As of now, you see entity, and this is where I'm defining the entity. You can see this entire thing is the definition of the entity. You remember the domain class that we talked about, right, friends? You remember that? The domain classes? Sorry. Okay, no problem. Local service is equal to true, and name is equal to foo. So this is the name foo. When it generates things automatically, whenever you create a new service builder kind of a project, it by default sets these things so that you know from where to get started and how you make changes to it. So local service is true. That means it will generate the services needed in order to access this service locally from within Liferay. Remote service is equal to true. No, I'll make it false. If at all you wanted to generate a JSON-based API so that you can invoke it from the other, from outside of Liferay, you must be able to do it. Then in that case, remote service is equal to, you'll say true. We'll keep it false for now. UUID is true. That means for the primary key, it will generate the UUID as well. The unique identifier it will generate. But the name of this will not be foo, of course. The name of this entity is employee. We want to create an entity called employee. So it will automatically create a class called employee, and it will create all the respective classes that are needed based on the design pattern, the service classes, the persistent classes as well. And the model class, the name of which will be employee. Actually, employee will not turn out to be a model. It will be an interface. You will have another class called employee IMPL, which will be the implementation of employee interface. But this employee represents the model. This employee represents the business entity. This employee represents the domain entity. Right, it's interesting. Here, I will say employee ID. This is supposed to be the value of my primary key, and I don't want to keep it string. I mean long. I want to keep it string. No problem. You can keep it long if you want. Fine. So the data type will be long. Let me keep it string. And now these are the fields that I really actually do not need. Okay, these are the fields, which helps you to store the user ID, the one who has logged into the user, company ID, which is the current virtual instance. That company ID will go in this. User name is the name of the user, who will be creating the new employee, and then the date on which it is created and the modified date and blah, blah, blah. But then I don't want to do that at all. I don't want to keep those. And then these are the fields, field 1, field 2, field 3. Of course, I do not have these fields. So I will remove all of these things. I don't need it. Right, order by, so whenever we retrieve the data, it must be in the order of employee ID. So this is the configuration that I'm doing. Okay, and I want more fields here. So what are those additional fields? I've got employee name. Employee name type will be string. Is this primary? No, this is not primary. Okay, and then I also have address. You remember, right? We did create a form and we have kept the form ready. Address. Got that. And then whenever we retrieve, it will be in the order of employee ID. And then finder methods, we will come to the finder methods later. Don't worry about this finder methods. We'll come to this later. So let me just comment this for now. And I do not want references. We are going to certainly discuss this also. This is also extremely important and interesting. We will talk about this later. Okay, so I've just commented all of these things here. Okay, and then here you go. So what do I have? I have my service.xml configured to create an entity of type employee, and then it will generate the local service. These are the three fields: employee ID, employee name, and address. Employee ID happens to be the primary key. Correct. This is what we have done. And whenever we retrieve data, if there are, many, not if, there will be certainly many employee objects created, we will be able to, whenever we retrieve, it will retrieve based on in the order of employee ID. You got this? Okay. So now I'm going to close this, and I will click right mouse button here on service, your service.xml file. And you see there is an option here now. See this additional option. I mean, this different option here. Up till now, we have been getting what deploy, but then here it understands, the plugin understands that, oh, okay, which plugin I'm talking about. This is the Liferay plugin for your IntelliJ IDEA. I'm sorry, let this go on the record. It's absolutely fine. I know this is getting recorded. I hate Eclipse, though I have worked on Eclipse based IDEs extensively, in past, but then last few years I'm using IntelliJ. It works like a charm, right? And especially with Liferay stuff and all, Liferay Developer Studio, I've seen that, you create a project and stuff, and it goes in a spin. It keeps on downloading files and stuff. It's not able to come out of it usual, but this is just super, very clean, very neat, right? The options that you need are all available, are all available. So this works like a charm. And very importantly, you have this plugin available, Liferay plugin available for IntelliJ IDEA Community Edition also. So you don't need to have Ultimate Edition in order to use this plugin. Okay, coming back here, so Liferay and then build service. But then if at all your management, your business, your team, your manager, if he wants you to use Eclipse-based Liferay Developer Studio, you dare tell him that Shakir said he hates it. Please don't do that, okay? So you have to use that, and you must use that efficiently, and please don't be dependent on IDE at all. You must be able to work equally good on Liferay Developer Studio as well. Okay, so you can see this, the service is built. The service is built. Now, you can see earlier this SRC folder was not there. When we started and when we created this, SRC folder was not there. And this SRC folder here in the services was also not there, and the API also was not there. Let's explore this. You will see here SRC in customer-service-API, the sub-module of employee service. You see it creates all of these packages. Exception is the package in which you will have no such employee exception, because if you try to retrieve an employee by the ID, but if that employee does not exist, it will throw this exception automatically, right? It's all written. And then you've got the model class. You've got the model. And in the model, you remember I did mention, you see this employee, this is an interface. This is an interface, not a class. And this interface extends from employee model interface, which also extends from persisted model interface. These are the ones that are also generated. You can see this employee model here. And then this employee model extends from base model, and it's a generic type of a class, and this base model is of type employee. You got this? Employee model extends from base model. When I go to base model, you see this. This is from com.liferay.portal.controller model. This is not the class that is generated. This is the part of the framework. See, friends, what is a framework? Framework is something which has got a lot of code written in some set of classes, and your application sits on top of that framework using the services of the framework. So all the generic code and the boilerplate code and the code that you would otherwise need many a times, for that you build framework and you put all of that boilerplate code, that common code, that generic code into that framework, some classes into that framework, and your application sitting on top of that framework uses that code the way it is structured. It helps you to use that code. So you see this in base model, they have written a lot of code already. They have written. This maze model is actually an interface again. So not that they have written, but okay. It is see now. Prior to Java 1.8, you did not have the concept of default behavior. Hello, friends. Prior to Java 1.8, interfaces cannot have default behavior. I repeat once again, prior to, so which version you all started with? Perhaps you might have started your career now with Java 1.8, but then otherwise 1.7 and all the other versions prior to that, you can just simply declare a function in an interface. You can just simply declare an interface with some service declaration. You cannot have default implementation, but now you can have default implementation. Not only that, you can also have static methods in an interface, and you can have a functional interface also, and so on. So anyways, so you've got this default methods here. So they have written the default implementation here, right? This is an interface. Got that? And then again, it extends from closed model and clonable and comparable and blah, 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 all of that entire, this is the framework. This is what the framework is. But this employee model is here. The employee model is here. This is where your employee model is. This is the class that is generated. It has generated this class. How did it generate the class? With the help of that build service. It generated this class that extends from, sorry, not class, interface. It generated this interface that extends from base model. And then you've got this is deprecated, it itself says deprecated JSON based, API, writing an API for the service is a better way of doing it. They have deprecated this, but still it generates. Now, employee table, now this is the class again, it extends from base table, employee table, and this has got all the fields that we declared. You remember, right? The fields that we declared in UUID, and then you can see this some flags and primary and stuff and all. It uses these things. And what will be the name of the table in the database? This has all the this has the details of the columns and the field and the primary key that you have created in the name of the table. You can see this employee underscore employee. This will be the name of the table actually created in the database. Then you put employee wrapper and stuff, and all these are again, this is a class that is created. Employee table is also a class that is created that it uses, in the framework. We don't need to worry about this. I mean, I'm just showing these classes to you, not that we will be writing any code. Here also, this employee, we will not be making any changes to this. We are not going to make any changes to this at all. Okay, so closing this. Now, here again, so this is the model, you remember, right? We did talk about, sorry, draw.io. You remember we talked about model? This is the representation of the model. See how beautifully they have structured the classes. See this. So this is the part of your model, this. Okay, right? And now the business service. See the business service, it generated the APIs here, right? So this is the interface. You can see this. And you will find it extends from base local service. You can see this, add employees there, create employee, create persistent model and stuff, and I'll delete employee. So all of these functions with CRUD functions are already declared over here. This is an interface. Then this is your employee local service util. Now you know what? They do not want you to say employee service is equal to new and some class. Right, they go by the pattern wherein they create util classes. I repeat, they create util classes. So employee local service util. If the name of the entity was yabadabadu, then the name of the class would be yabadabadu local service util. If the name of your entity was abracadabra, then in that case the name of your class will be abracadabra local service util. Got that? So what this does is that this is a kind of a helper class, a utility class, which has static methods. For example, you see this add employee. This is a static method. So you don't need to really have the service reference. You can very well simply use this util class and invoke the functions, which in turn, you see this get service, which in turn gets the reference of the service runtime and invokes the functionality on the respective functionality on that service. You got that? So very simple, isn't it? And then here you have persistence class. Here you can see this. This is again an interface, sorry, not a class. Employee persistence. I can very well use some finder methods and stuff and all. If I wanted to use find first, find last, this provides an employee util. This is again from the persistence layer. Again, this wraps the employee persistence so that I don't have to use it directly. Got that? So these are the interfaces that it generates. Now, where is the implementation? Most of these are interfaces. Where is the implementation? Implementation is here. You can see this SRC, you can see this Java, and you can see this model IMPL. So here you will find employee based model IMPL, which extends from so and so but implements employee. Got that? See employee IMPL, which extends from employee base IMPL, which is this, and that ends up implementing employee. So this implementation will provide all the behavior that is declared on the face of the employee interface, and this employee interface has got all the getter methods that you would need in order to use the employee object. You can see this here, new access cell and then stuff and all. You see employee ID string. You see this get the employee object, get attribute class, get type class, isn't it? An employee model, yeah, this is the employee model where you will be able to get, get employee ID, set employee ID. You can see this, get employee name, set employee. So this is where you have got the declaration of these services, which are implemented by the appropriate class over here. Employee base model IMPL, right? Employee model IMPL, here you are. Got this, friends? You see, right? See, this has the implementation. This is the class that has the implementation of that interface. So am I writing these classes? No, these classes are all automatically generated. Similarly, you've got the base, which is, again, it uses this class in order to provide some base functionality. Base means what? The framework related functionality, right? Some generic functionality, and employee local service IMPL. This extends from employee local service base IMPL, yes, employee local service base IMPL, which implements your employee local service. You remember employee local service that is declared over here, see? Employee local service that is declared here, right? So in short, this contains your service will contain your the implementation, whereas here you will find this, you will find the interfaces. And if you want to, now you have got to tell me this, friends, if you want to use this, the features and the services of employee service, what do you think your other project must be dependent on, the other module must be dependent on? Should it be dependent on the implementation, or it must be dependent on the abstraction? Come on, friends, tell me. What should it be dependent on, abstraction or the implementation? Abstraction are interfaces. Even abstract class is an abstraction, but still, tell me, what should they be dependent on? Should they be dependent on the implementation? For example, from the employee portlet, I want to use the services of employee. So what do you think this should be dependent on? Employee portlet must be dependent on implementation. Are you sure? The client classes must be dependent on the abstraction or implementation. On the abstraction, write this in bold. Your client classes must always be, your clients must be dependent. When I say client, I'm not talking about end user. I'm not talking about your business customer or the business clients. I'm talking about the client classes, the client components. Your client components must be dependent on abstraction, not on implementation. This is the mantra of good design. Okay. So this is what we have done. We have already generated. We have not yet done any deployment, but still I can always click right mouse button on employee service. Now, after building the service, rather, I would say after building the service, I can always say Liferay, I say deploy. Now, when I do this, you see it's building. Yeah, and then it's going to deploy. Okay, it was successful. I go back here and I check. I'll have to wait for a few seconds, and here you see this, it has deployed successfully without any problem. You can see this employee service has started. This OSGI bundle has started. I repeat, this OSGI bundle has started. You got that, friends? Right? Simple. I want you to reach up till here, and then I will proceed further, showing you how to access these services, what the default CRUD services, and how to access them from employee portlet. We're going to do that for sure. So let's I want you to complete this, friends. So whatever I have demonstrated, whatever I have explained, I want you to do the same thing on your own machines. If you have any issues, if you have any problems, absolutely feel free to let me know. Okay, come on, get started. Pretty simple stuff.